Hello guys, and welcome to today's video. I'm going to be showing you how to assemble this LED cube that I got off of Amazon. The links will be down in the description below. It was a little confusing with the instructions, so I'm just going to clarify a few things, and this should help you get up and running in no time. So let's dive into it. Okay guys, so when you get your cube, you're basically going to get a set of LEDs. Now I got the multicolor set. So I've got a set of blue, green, and red LEDs. And so you will probably get this set or the all blue set. But when you do get it, you're going to get these instructions. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you a couple things about the instructions. If you notice the instructions right here, it's wrong. It's saying that the short pin is cathode, but in the picture this is the long pin. So this is wrong. Follow this: the short pin cathode and the longer pin anode. So basically cathode is negative and anode is positive, right? And so they want you to build up in the multicolor cube, they want you to build up these different layers, right, of all these different colors. So the ones that I have marked off already are the ones that I've already done to keep track, and the one that I have left is the one that I haven't done, which is the one that I saved for this video. So let me just go ahead and show you what a couple of these grids look like. So yeah, this is 7 grids of 8, and so we're gonna do the 8th one together so I could show you the fastest process on how to do it to make it easier on you guys. And so yeah, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lay out your board like this. Now I will say that in the instructions, these 2 wires right here, this positive and negative wire, you're going to solder onto the board. It's in the instructions. Let me see if I can find it real quick. So yeah, here it is right here. So you're going to solder that positive and negatively to the board, because as you can see in this picture, you're going to use it to test the LEDs. So when you test these LEDs, I tested them individually and while they're on the grid. But you don't want to test them directly with a battery because you could overload the LED and burn it out. So this gives you safe voltage from the board to test. And all you have to do is plug the board up in the back. There's a USB cable that it comes with, and you just plug it up in the back. It's up here out of frame. I don't want to move this, but you'll know what I'm talking about to do that. And so I'll show you in the illustration for if you really need to see it. So you'll see this is the bottom of the board, and you'll see a USB plugs right into it, an adapter jack right there, and there go your test cables right there. So plug it in, get your test cables. While you assemble these LED rails, you can test each rail out when you're done, and that will ensure that you don't have any LEDs failing upon the final assembly. Also guys, I didn't show you guys this, but I actually have a USB fan right here, right? Just a little USB fan. It's black. I'll go ahead and post a link in the description down below. I just keep that fan moderately just running nice and smooth, just to blow away all the smoke as I'm working, because you are going to be soldering a lot, so you are going to have a lot of smoke generated. I'm going to leave off the fan just for now, just to show you this example so there isn't any noise. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put some solder on the tip of this iron, and then I'm going to go ahead and hold up the first LED and lift up the second one with the solder, right? That might be a little too much, but it's not going to be a problem, right? So now we have the first 2 soldered, and now we can go ahead and do the other ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm just basically going to dab the iron with a little bit of solder, and then I'm going to use the solder to lift up the pin of the next LED. Watch. See that? And then blow it a little, let it dry, then do the next one. See that? and then it just becomes something that you do fast after a while. And so we've got one more. Make sure all the pins are always lined up properly. Alright, so I might have put a little too much solder on a couple of them, but this is just an example. Typically what I do have is like a sponge or a rag to clean off the excess solder off the iron as I do this. I just didn't have it right now for the video, but it's not going to be a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and just lift off some of this excess solder just to make it a little more cleaner, or spread it out. You can spread it out across the pin sometimes. Alright. That way it doesn't have all these little jagged edges. Oh, that one bent. Let me bend it back. It's easy as that. Right. So now that we have the whole rail assembled, as you can see, it's one now. And so what I like to do to test it is very simple. Some people test them one by one, but you just have the negative here on the last cathode on the rail with the pin sticking out, right? And then you just go ahead and brush each one of these LEDs just like that. That one's not getting any power. That one's not getting any power. Oh wait, it is. So sometimes you have to make sure that you're pushing this wire down because it's not soldered, and then go ahead and test them again. Oh, there's no reason why that one. Oh, so we found the inconsistency right here. You see one of the pins didn't get soldered on, even though it looked like it. I was just rushing through it. So let me go ahead and do this one over again. And now it's connected. Now that it's cooled, let's test it again. So this is why we make these videos, guys, so that way you can see what it's like to do a successful connection and to see one that's unsuccessful and see the correction. So now the whole rail looks good and it's working. So now what I'll also do is I'll take the rail off and I'll stress test it, right? So I'll bend it a little bit just to make sure none of these joints break off easy. So yeah, this rail feels strong enough, guys. There's a little bit of excess solder in the middle here that I don't like, so I'm gonna just spread it out or get rid of it. But yeah, so there it goes. So this rail is complete. So this is one blue rail. So now I gotta do multiple green rails. I gotta do 6 of them, and then another blue rail at the end like this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide this rail over to the end. You guys probably can't see it off screen, but I'm basically just putting it in the 8th slot, right, furthest down, because we've got to recreate that diagram. And so I'm gonna get started with a whole green set here, and then do that 5 more times, and then do the blue one, and then I'll show you guys how to bend with this plastic strip all the anode pins over, the easiest way to do it, and weld those together as well. Okay guys, so alright, so you can see I've already gone ahead and finished all of the pins and rails soldered together, and everything's laid out properly. And so the easy secret method that I use when doing this is that I'll take the plastic strip that they give you with the kit, and I'll do 4 at a time on each side and fold them down. Because to try to do all of them, I mean, you could, but it's more of a hassle. So when I bend them down, you can actually hold this in place and you can bend down 2 at a time, right? And when you bend them down, rub them against the next pin up. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm actually rubbing them up against the next pin and then folding it down, right? And then I'll pull out, fix that pin right there. Sometimes you might bend a pin. It's a little hard for me right now because I'm on camera, right? To keep my hands in the right view for you guys. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead, if you've only folded the outer 2, which sometimes that can happen, you know, remove the plastic strip for whatever reason, put it back, and then go ahead and you can start pushing down the next ones. So you could do them 1 at a time, but once you get a hang of it, and of course you're not recording a video, it just becomes, you know, really fast, right? So let's go ahead, let's do it 1 by 1, just like that. And you see how I kind of fold it down and touch the bottom of the next LED, so, and then when it comes back up, there's like a little space, right? Move forward, pull it out, and so forth, right? Let me show you this one. Right? I'm sorry if it was a little blurry, but now you can see that they're all folded down and how I did it. I'm gonna go ahead on the other side, just like this. Right? Pull the strip forward, pull it out, put it back in, and so I'm resting the strip on the cathode rail, right? The rail that's running this way, so you can see the whole purpose behind the strip and bending the pins over, right? Let me get that focus. So I'm gonna do this with one hand so you can get a perfect focus, right? But typically you want to do it with 2, but that's how it's done. Just like that. And then pull forward and then slide out. So I hope that shows you how to bend the anode rails down and the pattern more or less of what they're looking for. So remember, this is the blue-green pattern for the multicolor. If it's all blue, you don't have to worry about it. But so I've got blue running along the edges, and then from there on it's green, and then the opposite edge I have blue as well, so it matches up with the pattern. So just so you can see, guys, the proper orientation and how you should do this, because it is confusing when you get all these parts in the instructions, and especially since there's an error in one of the pictures, you know, it can really confuse you and throw you off. So yeah, let me finish bending down the rest of these rails, and then I'll show you how I solder them together. Alright guys, so I've gone ahead and bent down all of the pins, and so all the pins are ready to be soldered. And what we're going to do is we're going to grab our plastic strip, and remember, I use this to push down on the LEDs, right? Not on the wire or pin, but on the actual plastic part of the LED in the corner, right? Let me see if I can get in closer, but if you can see that, I'll actually try to zoom in Final Cut to see if I can get a a better view for you guys on some of these shots. But yeah, go ahead and look at that. You can see I use the plastic strip to hold down the LED right there in the corner. And so while I do that, right, I'm just gonna go in here. While I do that, I don't bend down here at the end because that does little to nothing, right? It just springs back up. So you're gonna wanna bend here on the inside near the strip, and then you can see there it doesn't go back up as much. I don't know if you can see that. Let me do another one. Right, so I'm gonna bend towards the plastic strip and I'm gonna push down, and then you'll see it stays down, right? And so what I do is I go through pretty much all of them and I try to get them all aligned up as possible so I don't have it bending up on me while I'm trying to solder. That one might be done a little too much, but not really. See, when you push it down, it goes level back up. So some of them, you might appear to bend them down too much, but when you actually push down on the LED, you'll see it come right back up. So on the last one, you don't have to worry too much about it being level, but I still try to make it as level as possible. All right, let's look at this one. This one is still bent up a lot. That one is still bent up. All right, so now they're all pretty much aligned. This whole front rail is ready to go. And so what I do, I got my solder here, and this is electronic solder. I don't know if I showed you guys, but I got this from Lowe's. I usually would go with thinner, right? But this is all they had, and I didn't want to wait for Amazon. But pretty much any electrical solder will do. So now we're gonna move in here. And so, just like how I did the rail, you can use the solder to lift the pins in place, right? So you just dab a little bit at the end, and then you just basically just rub it there in place. That one is done. Then you use this one to pick up the pin, if that's possible. If it's not possible, then what I do is I go in with the strip, and I bend it up a little bit, right? Just like that, and I go ahead and dab a little more solder onto my iron and then spread it on like that. Now you can see it looks a little excessive, and I know that, but I wasn't gonna wait, you know, for solder overnight or the next day or whenever it decides to come, because there's all types of shipping delays now with Amazon, and I'm behind in my videos, guys. I need to get a lot more videos out. So next one, we can go ahead, push down from the LED before, and then bend up the pin like that. Get some solder on the iron, and then go ahead and just spread it like that. You can blow on it, and you can see if you test those rails with a little stress, they won't break. And I do recommend doing little stress tests on your rails, guys, because sometimes you'll have weak solder links and you'll have to go back, right? And what a mess it would be if you had 5 weak links in one grid, and then it's already out of the grid layout, and you'd have to go back and do it manually. It would be a headache. So get all your solder joints stress tested while it's on the grid, right? Just push down on them, right? Just push down on them. You know, you can move them around a little bit, and you'd be surprised. It takes very little force to break away a weak solder link. And when you pull out each rail and you do the bend stress test, you can, you know, test those rails effectively doing that. Some of them you'll see won't break. Some of them might actually bend a little too easy, and that's also a weak solder link. So you don't want anything to easily bend. So let's go ahead and finish up the rest of this. And let me me go ahead and get the soldering frame so you guys can see what I'm doing. So push down on the LED before, get some solder, put it on the end. So what I actually need to do too, guys, you could see the solder looks a little dirty. Right? So the end of the soldering iron, I'm gonna get a paper towel and fold it up, and I'm gonna wet it under the sink, and I'm gonna use it to clean the tip of the soldering iron. Now, typically you would use a sponge, a wet sponge. A lot of these soldering irons come with a sponge, but you could also use this as an alternative, guys. So I'm just giving you all the workarounds on, you know, if you don't have certain things readily available. And this soldering iron plus the other one I got it at Lowe's, but I'm gonna go ahead and try to find the link on Amazon. I'm using Weller soldering irons, right? Let me see if I can show you the name. Focus on that. Yeah, so Weller. And then I also have a wireless one. This uses AA batteries, and it works for a significant amount of time, but not significant for this whole entire grid and all the soldering that we got to do. So I went ahead and picked up the one that, you know, this one has a wire on the end of it. So I'm very happy with this one, and the power is great, and it also has a little light up LED so you can see exactly what you're doing all the time. So win-win on this iron, and also the tip doesn't degrade. I had a soldering iron from Radio Shack, and the tip would degrade so easy, and I'd always have to resharpen it, reshape it, resand it, but I don't have to do none of that with this. So anyways, links will be down in the description below. Let me go ahead and get that paper towel. Okay, so with my wet paper towel, I'm gonna go ahead and just clean off the tip like that. And you can even close it up. Be careful, it's very hot and you can burn yourself real easily. And don't leave it on there too long, and so now you can see we're good to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and just keep going. I'm gonna get some solder on the tip here, right? And just go ahead and now you can see how much cleaner that is. And go ahead and do this one. And finish it up with this one. Alright guys, and so if you look at this entire rail, doing it this way, you eliminate any warping and flexing, because sometimes if you try to not do it the way I told you, and you see bend these pins that are up, just bend them down and solder them, right? If you just try to bend them down and solder them without properly aligning everything, you're gonna have this kind of bend in the entire grid. It's gonna warp, and then you're gonna have to kind of bend it back, and that's a headache. We just rather solder everything, get it nice and straight, so you don't have to go back and do any warping or bending, which can also break the joints. You just want it perfect in the grid layout, lift it up, and it's ready to be set on the circuit board. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish up this entire grid, and then we'll get to the next step. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up this entire grid, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so just to give you a summary of what I've done. Okay, so I finished assembling the grids, and what I'm doing now is I've inserted it into the board, and so as you can see, there's an arrow that says this is where the LED should face. It should face this way, right? And so if you look on the instructions, it will tell you the patterns that you're supposed to insert it in. I'm actually going to pull that up right now. So if you look right here in the instructions, it says the basic pattern that you should put it in, insert it into the board, all blue and so forth, blue, red, blue, green, blue, red, blue, green, blue, red, blue, green, and then all blue again. So all blue at each end, and then the multicolors in between. So the instructions are there, just follow it and just do it like that. And so when I put it into the board, just to give you guys you know, an easier insight on how to insert the grid into the board, I inserted all of the pins, and then on each end I soldered both pins, right on each end right here. You see me pointing. So that way I soldered one end first, and then I make adjustments to make sure everything is leveled, and then I'll solder this pin afterwards. And so once everything is adjusted and leveled, because you can have the grid bend forward or backward or sideways like that, so you have to make sure everything is lined up properly, and then you can make these two ends pins solid, and then go ahead and then solder the rest of the pins in between. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, guys, and then show you the next step. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you that, guys, and then on to the next step. Alright guys, so as you can see, I've gone ahead and got all the grids installed the way I'm supposed to. And now so basically, yeah, you had to solder all the bottom rails, and then the leftover side rails, you can't see them on this side, but I'll show you in another clip. But on the other side, all the leftover rails of the anode, you have to link them all together. Let me see if I could just turn this around real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about. So there you go, guys. So you see all those rails that were coming sideways, because you have the cathode rails going down, then you have the anode rails going sideways. So you want to connect all the anode rails side to side, and so that leaves all the grids open. And that's where we've got to cut this tin wire that they provide. It comes wrapped in a circle, but we want to take this wire and cut it to the right amount of length for the cube, because basically this is going to reinforce the cube, right? So it's going to go side to side like this, right? I know you can barely see that, guys, but here it is. So it's going to go side to side like this, and it's going to go in like even numbers. So I'm going to do it, and I'm going to show you the final results, so you can see how to solder this wire to connect all of the grids so that they aren't pancaking together. Because let me show you what's happening on the other side, right? I don't know if you can see that. Hold on. You could definitely see it here. You see how these two are close together? So the wire is going to kind of solder and separate them so that they're even apart. So that's the goal. It's going to be to reinforce this other side, which is wobbly, while the other side is reinforced by all the anode connectors connecting to each other. So yeah, guys, so I hope that this gives you a better perspective on how to put this together to save a lot of time. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rails in and show you how those look installed, and then we're going to connect the back anode wires. Okay, so I went ahead and installed the power rails, and I know the focus might look a little weird, guys, but just try to follow me as best you can, because the details of this were kind of murky, and I wasn't sure if it was gonna work. So the power rails go in the first row right here, so the LEDs are facing this way, and so this is the first row of LEDs, so a power rail goes right after that, right there in between the first and second, right there. And then I went ahead and counted 3 LEDs and then put another power rail in right here, right? And so you'll have 1 LED power rail, 1 LED, 2 LED, 3 LED power rail, 1 LED, 2 LED, 3 LED, 4 LED. So there's nothing for the last 4 LEDs. And so what I did also, I counted down 4 spaces. So you'll see box number 1, box number 2, box number 3, and then on box number 4 I installed a power rail. And the same thing down from the top one here on this side, box number 1, box number 2, 3, and then on the 4th I installed another power rail that you can see right there, right? So that's basically keeping this whole side structure on this side of the cube stable, because the other side is stable by the anodes that we connected, and this side, right, this whole side needed stability. This side moving back, right, because everything was wobbly, and so that's why we installed those power rails. And I wasn't sure if it was gonna short circuit the anodes or anything, because once again, if there's mistakes in the instructions, you just don't know what to trust. So everything worked out good, and that's pretty much it, guys. After that, wait, there's one more step. Okay, and then after that, let me see if I can get it focused here. Right. Okay. So after you install the power rails, what you're gonna do next is it's gonna ask you to install these wires, right? 8 wires at multiple different levels, right? Because you've got level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 levels up. And for each level of LED, you're gonna be supplying a wire, right? And you'll see down here it says that this is an anode wire, right? So these little empty slots where the wires go, that's your positive. That's gonna send positive to each level of the LEDs, because your negative is coming from the ground, right? All the individual pins that you soldered into the ground, that's where your negative is coming from, and all those different signals. While these rails back here that you're going to be supplying the positive by wire to, you know, that's just going to give you the positive on each level. That's why the power rails don't short circuit everything, because, or anything, because, you know, it's not, you know, crossing any circuits. It's just basically the same circuit. It's all positive, right? The negative are what dictates which LED turns on. So you're gonna go ahead and just cut the appropriate length for level 1, level 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? And so how you can better understand the orientation, it says here for the smallest wire, it says bottom anode. So of course we're gonna, you know, connect it to the bottom rail, right? And then so the one at the other end says top anode, so that's gonna be for the top of the cube. So that's pretty much it, and then you can figure out all the other wires in between. It just goes up a step up. It's like a step ladder, right? So just follow the instructions, guys, along with this video, and I know that it will be a lot easier for you to assemble this cube. I know that there were a lot of people that got frustrated with it, the instructions and all the soldering, but trust me, it's well worth it if you take the time and if you make sure all your solder joints are strong. You will be completely satisfied with the outcome. So that's it, guys. Let's go ahead and turn it on, and I'm just gonna let the pattern run. If you found this video useful, hit the subscribe, like, comment. If you have any questions, I'm gonna go ahead and just let this play and show you guys all the different patterns. And that's it for now, and until next time.